All right, so we are now live. This begins the pre-meeting for the City Planning Commission hearing on Monday, April 25th, 2022. During the pre-meeting, staff and Planning Commission members review cases. There is no participation by applicants or the public. Following the conclusion of the pre-meeting, a public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. Here, all cases will be heard, applicants will present, and any spoken public comment will be heard. After the conclusion of the hearing, deliberations will follow. The Planning Commission will take action on cases that were heard at the public hearing, and there is no participation by applicants or the public at the deliberations. So the first item for our pre-meeting is the discussion of comments related to the zoning alignment project.
Hello, board. So you all should have received several mailings from us. One was the actual spreadsheets of all of the comments we've received to date, one before January 31st and one after. You'll note just scrolling through the list that we are just under 1,000 comments. We've got a great deal of information that came back from the public. We also sent you a report summarizing the frequently heard ZAP topics. We gave you a summary of the comments. We gave you what our response has been so far and how we're dealing with those comments. And then we left some space for a response from the commission, should you wish to comment further on what we've done. We do have a short period of time today, so we can go right to questions that you have on the materials submitted. Or alternatively, if you want us to go through them one by one, we can take that route. So.
Yeah, Roseanne, I would suggest that we should go through one by one. That way,
okay.
If anybody has any questions, they can ask them at that time.
Okay, great. All right, so the first frequently heard, and these are in no particular order, but the first topic that we wrote about were the additional dwelling units and duplexes and low density residential units. Questions were raised as to why we were not permitting them. Comments were also made that we need to make sure we don't permit them. I believe, as we described in our summary, this was addressed in Rochester 2034. And our approach is that an additional dwelling unit is an accessory dwelling unit is an additional dwelling unit, and we will deal with them as an additional dwelling unit. So depending on what district you're in, that may or may not be something that you can do as of right, or something that you may need a variance for. But ultimately, dwelling unit conversion standards will be taken into account if you're increasing your density, if you're building new. Your number of units will be based on what is permitted both by the characteristic of your property and what fits, as well as what zone you're in. So we believe we've adequately addressed that in the current code, in the new code, the proposed draft code, and that we are in alignment with Rochester 2034.
So Roseanne, I'd just like to add something to that. Mm-hmm. In the current code, we have a thing called the prohibited variants. And what we were doing since 2003 is that if someone wanted to add another unit to a property, it was not, you could not even obtain a variance for it. So the new code is going to eliminate that prohibited variance. So like Roseanne said, there is a path to getting that second unit. Whereas before in the current code, there is no path. So it's kind of a compromise in some respects for the issue, but I just want to make sure that it was clear that there was a big change happening with respect to that prohibited variance.
Okay, are there any questions from the board on that direction? Okay. Another thing we had a lot of comments on was legalization of 3 or more dwelling units in low density residential. We allowed for an exemption for built as or legally existing two families in the low density residential district to eliminate the amount of nonconformities. We got a lot of comments along the lines of we should also eliminate or make all the existing nonconformities allowed, so that if they burn down, that they can be reconstructed. I believe in general, we came up with sorry, I'm just back from vacation and I'm going from my notes, but I'm a little hot. I'm in Texas. By allowing everything to exist in LDR and allowing converted buildings to exist in LDR creates an adverse impact, because the general intention of the code and nonconformities is to have these properties gradually go away and have the district be more and more in conformity and the properties in the district be more and more in conformity. By doing a sort of blanket relief, we would go against that. And we felt that that would be contrary to the goals of Rochester 2034. So we are sticking with just the legalized and built as two families in the LDR.
So this is one that we did leave, we kind of left open under the staff response. I mean, that's our stance as staff and what we're proposing. However, this is one that we were particularly looking for City Planning Commission feedback on this. Is it all or nothing, or is it, 3 and 4 families in R1 should be allowed to remain if they're legally existing at the time of the code? So it's just kind of like, where do you draw that line? Right now, we're drawing it at 2 family. And do you think that's reasonable based on what you're seeing in the comments, based on what you know about the code? And so that's one of the things we were kind of looking for guidance from you guys on specifically.
I appreciate the team also putting together a quick commentary on the financing piece, because I think that's what's going to drive a fair amount of this. That if you're unable to actually get financing to own one of these facilities, it drastically changes who can actually be an owner of these assets. And so if there's a 3-family, let's say hypothetically, there's a 3-family, and sorry, I'm like processing this and thinking out loud at the same time. There's a 3-family building. It's up for sale. Jane Doe wants to buy it. The only way she can do that is to get financing through traditional method. They do a check on zoning, not saying that a bank would, but if a bank does, they do a check on zoning. They realize that if it burns down, they can't actually rebuild that same structure. Therefore, she can't finance it in traditional methods. It instead goes to an investor who has no desire to give anything back to the community because he can buy it cash. I don't like that. I don't think that that's equitable. But I hear you that it needs to be drawing a line somewhere. And so to the point that was just made, if that's at 3 or 4 families as existing structures versus a 12-unit building, that would make sense. I also think that there's a code versus a practice. And quick clarification, are we saying prohibited, meaning like no ZBA approval? If somebody if a developer came with like a 12-unit building proposal, it wouldn't even be viewed.
No, we've gotten rid of prohibited variances, so they may try for that.
Great. So that I think kind of hits the point home, is that like if developers with deep pockets want to come and build something, and they think it's going to be lucrative and they have a clean path forward, they're going to submit an application for that regardless. And that putting a limitation on 3 or 4 family units may only really hurt the people who like may be able to buy those things through traditional methods, not in cash only finance or cash only non-financing, right? So I think a 3 or 4 family, upping it to a 3 or 4 makes sense versus large buildings. 3 or 4 versus a duplex, I mean. And I'll go ahead and say 4.
Yeah. All right, so right now the line's at 1 and 2. I think Commissioner Flap, I heard you're right. You're saying we should consider 3 and 4, but not all residential uses. Any other
Richard?
members of the board?
I think
No, I'm
Richard had
just-
something to say.
I'm just thinking, I mean, at Beechwood tonight, there's a number of multi-family units being proposed to be put in there with variances. So, in some ways, if that's really the situation, is this a matter of,
There,
Is this
there
a-
was special permits, not with variances.
okay. Well, is there, I guess I'm looking at this thinking, well, if it's pre-existing, is there a means for them to, I guess, go for a special permit while it's still exists before it burns down? You know what I mean? As a preemptive?
So you're saying that they could take their existing 3-family, they could apply for the variance to legalize that 3-family, and then they no longer have an issue because the variance stays with the property.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking there. So that they're protected in that sense. Should it burn down?
Should it burn down? I mean, I do believe that's something they could do. How knowledgeable they are about the ability to do that, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a path they could take.
Mhm.
So what they would have to do is they'd have to prove through the use variance process that that property cannot be sustained as a single family. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Johanna and Tom, but they would have to make that, they'd have to prove that. And then,
If they were denied too, what
and
would
then,
happen?
yeah, if they can't prove that, they would get denied the use variance. So I don't, I would,
I don't know how that works.
no, it'd be tough. It potentially could be tough.
So it's sort of a sleeping dog thing then. Huh?
I mean, the bottom line is you really can't build a single family. I mean, you'd have to, I don't know, I guess I don't want to really get into all that, but it's really hard to make a single family pencil out. So maybe they do have a hardship case. I don't know. What do you think, Johanna, on that one, that idea? You're on mute.
I did that purposefully so I could think. I'm still, I think I got to go back on mute. If they're applying for the variance, yeah, I mean, they would have to meet the hardship standard. So it would have to be that there's not some financial, there's not a way that they could keep it as whatever it was, the 1 or a 2, without having a financial and economic hardship. And, and then there also is the need to address the other standards that, the impact on the neighborhood and the, that it's the minimal relief that's available. So there is a pretty high threshold for a variance approval, and whether someone who just simply wanted to buy or a property or keep a property and then later sell it at with a higher occupancy rate, is that going to meet the standards? Possibly not. The other thing to keep in mind with some of these houses, and this goes to this issue of what's the right number, whether it should be 2 units or 3 or 4. If it's originally a single family property that was converted, so the standard would be if it was a built as or legally converted. If it's illegally converted, keep in mind that the original structure may have been a single family. And if it was converted to 3, 4, 5 units, it could have been pretty chopped up, and that may not necessarily be appropriate for that property. There may be parking problems, there may be overcrowding problems, and that is kind of the goal of zoning and the nonconformities, is for those sometimes adverse uses of a property to go away. So on one property, it might not be a nice opportunity for an owner to have some additional income. On another property next door, it could be a property that's been badly chopped up, and it would not be good to be able to keep it that way. So it's zoning's never easy.
Sorry, quick
Commissioner
note on
Fox.
that. But
Yep.
I do think that making it 4 families or less aligns with traditional financing methods. That like most banks, you can go up to 3 units or 4 units and still have it be a relatively traditional loan versus going into commercial-based lending, which ends up 5 units plus. And so I think doing a 4 and down, that just as I'm thinking about it more, the more it makes sense to do 4 and down. And I hear you on the houses being chopped up and I've seen a lot of chopped up houses. And so like I get that they were once beautiful structures that will probably never regain again. And in the worst case scenario, this place burns down. And if it's a small local property company, I don't know, an owner group or whatever it may be, I still think that I still think it's better to incentivize. This is the ever optimist in me. It's better to give somebody the route to actually like replace that for themselves versus like saying no from the outset. And then I think we're just pigeonholing ourselves into getting a certain ownership group into these places if we're saying from day one that you can't. I'm also a very strong advocate for density. So I could take everything with color with me.
Yeah, I want to go back to, this is Steve. I want to go back to the what I think the staff had originally said, which was consistency with the comprehensive plan. So I know that the ability to to make things work financially is important to the comprehensive plan. But these areas are being, there is a zoning alignment with the comprehensive plan, and these areas in particular are being identified as low density residential. 4 families feels like it's departing from that. And although there may be some very good reasons, as Brad is saying, if we set the kind of the way banks lend money aside, which is most consistent with the comprehensive plan, and which is really kind of capturing the spirit of what non-conforming uses in a low density residential are trying to accomplish. Not so much to be a counterpoint to that, but to ask staff again. The original, I guess, thoughts that were articulated is that there should be a cutoff, and the cutoff that the staff had at least initially stated was 2 family.
Well, it says here, I believe it says, and Kevin, maybe you remember specifically what we said, but I have a quote here from 2034. Is it from, wait, let me, it's converted in the general code of the goal of the code. Oh, I don't know I don't know where this came from now. Sorry.
I've got it here.
But
Okay, Kevin's got it. Oh, sorry, Roseanne.
No, I was going to say, I think this is one of those cases where there are different sections in the comprehensive plan that apply to this differently. For instance, reducing nonconformities is definitely something in the comprehensive plan. Allowing for properties to be revitalized through access to financing is definitely part of the comprehensive plan. Maintaining the integrity of LDR is part of the comprehensive plan. So we're sort of putting you guys in this tough position because we're trying to find the balance in competing interests, both from the public and the comprehensive plan, to figure out, have we put the line in the right place? Do we need to shift the line?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that it's sort of addressed in a few different ways, but the plan does not really specifically come out and say that this is where the line should be drawn. It's, in the language about the 2 families, it's kind of trying to address the conversation about ADUs. But it doesn't really come out and say specifically about triples or 4 units. So I think there's some, I wouldn't even say room for interpretation. It's more of the plan doesn't say specifically. I think there's room for this process to really make a decision without actually being in blatant contradiction to the plan. I don't think we're at risk of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kevin. I got the impression that we gave a general, we talked about specifically adding a new unit, like adding a unit. We don't really talk specifically about non-conforming structures in the residential district. I don't think we talk about preserving non-conforming structures in the
non-residential non-conforming.
Yeah,
non-residential non-conforming.
Non-residential non-conforming, and that we want to preserve those and allow them to be reoccupied. well, we don't do a lot with existing residential non-conforming. And I don't think, like Kevin said, we don't have anything specific in the plan around that.
So what would, I guess, suggest that maybe, I mean, would we take some of these low density areas and make them medium density? I mean, if what we're trying to do is align with the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan does describe what low density is shooting for. And if what we're trying to do is to encourage maybe some more density and different options, I mean, should there be fewer low density areas?
Well,
Or
there
should we just say, we've carefully considered where these low density areas should be, and as we read through what is the character we're trying to achieve in a low density area, and understanding that the non-conforming uses would want to be phased out over time rather than solidified over time, which is the right cutoff, I guess.
Yeah,
And
and there has been a lot of rezonings. We've already rezoned some R1 districts into other districts, so that has
Right.
already been considered
I
and
do
done.
think even if we went back, I think no matter what we do, we are still going to have low density residential districts with one or two of these nonconformities in it. And we will still need to address this question because we will just never be able to, we would end up doing a lot of spot zoning if we took the one over here and the one over there to try and deal with it.
And I'm not suggesting that, but if
Mhm.
if kind of a the spirit of the non-conforming is to let it continue until it doesn't make sense to have it continue anymore because it doesn't belong there according to the comp plan and the zoning that's described around it. Why would we expand it to deal with those one and two things? I mean, it almost feels like we're kind of doing the opposite of spot zoning. We're changing the whole description of a character of a zone to allow
Okay.
these things to continue. I get these are just
Okay.
these are much,
Yeah, that's definitely a
brainstorming
counterpoint.
comments, and
Yep.
it's definitely a brain dump. It's not a conclusion by any stretch.
Yeah, and that's the counterpoint that we're hearing. That's what staff right now is trying to weigh and we're trying to figure out what to advance. So
I'm just checking in. At this point, we're at 5:26. And it seems like there's plenty more to discuss. So I don't know if the commission has any thoughts about holding a separate meeting to solely dedicate to going through these comments. Just because we have other administrative items and this, sort of deserves full focus. So I was wondering if maybe people would be interested in having a separate meeting, maybe sometime next week, to continue this discussion.
I opt yes for those. I think we can spend a lot of time on this stuff.
I think that makes sense. And as I think about these questions, I mean, I kind of want to know, where are all these properties and how big is this issue? Are we talking about 2 or 3 properties, or are we talking about many, many properties? It just feels like more information is needed and more time is needed to consider that information.
that's really good feedback because we can try and prepare that kind of information for the special meeting.
Yeah, can Steve, in addition to that, is there anything else that specifically that would be helpful for you on this topic, or actually any of the other topics that are going to be?
Well, I think that, the information that Brad was talking about, I have no concept of, that banks consider 4 units different than 5 units, and banks are unwilling to lend to an existing 3 or 4 family in a low density. I mean, that's all stuff I have no idea about. So, I mean, it sounds like these are real issues that need to be addressed. And is there another path to deal with those issues if they remain non-conforming, or are we really putting handcuffs on, people's ability to, to go and own these things and care for them and keep them productive properties?
Okay. Can I ask, I saw Commissioner Flowers put his thumbs up, and Commissioner Rebholz, other commissioners able to make a meeting next week? Thank you, Mr. Marlin. So let's, I would like to, if possible, maybe just schedule it now so that we can, we have the public here, we're streaming. This could satisfy notice requirements. I will say that if we go to next week, Kate, we have, what day is off? Because we have Pres Board.
So there is Pres Board on Wednesday and there's REC on Thursday.
Okay, REC is canceled because we
Oh,
have no referrals.
okay.
We sent that notice out today. So Wednesday is the only off day for staff. So does someone have a preference? Should we not do, let's see, where are we? We are Monday. No, we could do. Somebody want to throw something out that works for them?
How about you suggest a day and then take a count of hands that can do it?
Okay. All right. How about Monday, May 2nd? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's good. Commissioner Marlin, are you unable to do Monday?
What time?
That would be the next thing. How about Monday at, how about 6? People can get home from work. Monday at 6? Oh, I'm getting a lot of hands now. Okay, Monday at 6. And then the next question is, do we do it Zoom or do we book a conference room and do it at City Hall? I'll have to figure out how we.
It's fine with
it.
me, yeah.
Okay, we may be limited on that, depending on what we can make available. We'll have to figure out also how to stream it for the open meetings or have a place big enough that public can come and watch. So we'll work on whether it's going to be Zoom or a room, as long as you're open to both.
We're authorized,
Kevin,
we can continue to do virtual meetings of any kind until June 8th. So
Okay.
we're okay on this, yeah.
Doreen and Kevin, are you okay Monday at 6?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
And I'll also, if you're reading through this report or the comments and you see where specifically we may have, well, anywhere that you see that you need more information, like if we can prepare a map that shows non-conforming uses in the LDR, we can do that. If you see anywhere else that you think you might need more information to help you with this conversation next Monday, please let us know and we'll see what we can get ready for you by Monday.
I had one question and just want to ask the members might think this is helpful, is identifying like how many, or if there are any current R1 zoned properties that will be medium or higher density on the zoning, the new zoning map.
Yeah,
We have
we-
that.
It's relevant or not, but if,
That map is actually up on the ZAP website right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have that.
so that says what the delta is, like what properties currently R1 are going to be higher density.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
the upside,
Okay.
basically, yep. Well, I should say it doesn't, it's at a citywide scale, so you can't see all the individual properties, but you could see the areas or the blocks of the city that would fall under that category.
Great.
And it's not quite apples to apples, because if a single family burned down in an MDR, they could still build a single family if they wanted to. It's not quite apples to apples. Because what we're talking about here is the ability to rebuild after burning down. We're not talking about legalizing all of these in LDR. We're just talking about giving them the right to rebuild if it burned down.
Right. So Roseanne, that's a really good point. You can't build new. We're not talking about building new. We're just talking about replacements so that it can allow for lending for potential owner occupants, or actually it's not just owner occupants, obviously, but it's just to allow mortgages.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I think with that, the ZAP team and I are going to go away and let Kate and Tom and Mary conduct the regular hearing, go through the case info with you, and give you a minute to take a break and prepare for the hearing. Any last
Thank you,
questions?
Doreen.
for us?
Thank you, staff.
Okay.
See you next week.
See you Monday. Yep.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, Kate, for keeping us on track.
Sure, no problem. So the next item in our pre-meeting is election of chairperson and vice chairperson.
Mhm.
So at this time, I would like to take any nominations.
And again, you can not nominate yourself or nominate somebody else if you feel so moved?
I
And
nominate Mr. Watson.
Say again?
I nominate you for chair.
Oh, okay, I accept that.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, great. Uh,
Anyone else would like to nominate someone for the chair?
Pardon?
Oh, I was just asking if there's anybody else that would like to nominate someone for the chair. And if so, if not, we will close the nominations and we will vote. Right, so all those in favor of Chair Watson remaining chair indicate by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that should be 7-0. Thank you. And I'll try to do the best that I can with what I have. All right, now we must move on to the vice chair. And I guess I would like to nominate, yes, Brad?
Sorry, I just had a question, Dave, on what the, do we have a role definition for vice chair? What do vice chairs do? I think it's actually Eugenio right now, right? If
Yeah,
Eugenio
that's
wants
correct.
to reflect that, what do you do as vice chair? I mean, you do a lot, Eugenio, don't get me wrong.
No, I just fill in when the chair is not there.
That's correct. Yeah, that's his primary role.
Got it, thanks.
All right, anyone else like to nominate someone for vice chair? All right, hearing none, we'll close the voting, and all those in favor of Mr. Marlin as vice chair, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Opposed? All right, 7-0-0. Thank you so much, Mr. Marlin. Thanks so much, commissioners. And I'll turn it back to you, Kate, so we can go through the cases.
Great. So case number 1, OMA-004-21-22. This is an official map amendment for Selinger Street. Was everyone able to visit the site?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
see everyone shaking their heads. Okay, so all present commissioners visited the site. We had no public comments on this item. Are there any questions or concerns? All right, seeing none, we have case number 2, which is right adjacent to where case number 1 is. This is OMA-005-21-22, official map amendment for Albo Place. I can assume, but I will ask, was everyone able to visit the site? Yes, yes, I'm seeing everyone. Okay, all
Yeah,
present.
Kate, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
Was case number 1, was that not Elbow Place?
Case number 1 was Selinger Street.
Okay, so I guess the case number on our staff report is backwards.
Oh,
Yeah.
apologies. Okay.
Does it
Yeah,
fit?
I'm going based off of the agenda, so yes, it's definitely possible that there's an error
Yeah,
there.
because on
Yeah.
case number 2 that I have in staff report had Holly Street listed, not Selinger Street.
Mine too.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
So again, just for the record, for
absolutely.
for legal issues, make sure that gets changed.
No problem. Yep.
Okay. So I'm sorry, back to you.
No, okay, great. So all present commissioners visited the site for case 2. Any questions or concerns at this time? Seeing none, all right. Next, we have case number 3, file number M-008-21-22, zoning map amendment for 536 Central Ave. I believe Commissioner Rebholz will be abstaining from hearing and deliberating this case.
Correct.
Was
Should I jump off the call now?
Tom,
So,
you're muted.
Maybe we could save it to the last and then you could just jump off. Yeah.
Okay, so I will proceed with case number 4, file number E-017-21-22. This is a special permit for 232 Portland Ave. Were all commissioners able to visit the site?
Yes,
Yes.
All right, great. All present commissioners were able to visit the site. Any questions? Great. Next, we have case number 5, file number E-018-21-22. This is a special permit for 17 and 19 Harwood Street and 954 Monroe Ave. Were all commissioners able to visit the site?
yes,
Yes, great. Okay, so all present commissioners visited the site. Any questions? Great. And then I believe that cases 6 through 10, Commissioner Rebholz will be abstaining as well.
you cruising, yep,
Okay, great. So I guess just so it's on the record for case number 3, were all commissioners able to visit the site?
yes,
Yes, great. Okay. So then now I move on to case
Case
6.
number 3 is Central Avenue.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, sorry, Catherine,
sorry.
should I just jump off now and then come back on at 6?
Yeah, I
Is that-
think
I mean,
that,
that's, I think what typically happens, right, Tom?
right.
I don't listen to the pre-meeting. Okay, I will be
Thanks,
back.
Steve.
See everyone.
I have one question on case 3.
Mhm.
Why are there 2 central avenues in one city?
Well, I don't know if I can answer that question. You might
Why?
have to talk to E DES.
Yeah, that sent me on the wild goose chase there.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
Google didn't help. Anyway, that's all.
Okay. All right, so next we have case 6, file number E-019-21-22. This is a special permit for 639 Bay Street. Were all commissioners able to visit the site?
Yes,
Yes, great, okay. So all present commissioners visited the site. Any initial questions? Okay, seeing none.
I have one question. So is the idea on this one that all of the lots, that there's more than one lot will, that some lots will be combined into one lot?
For Bay Street?
Yeah. Because I saw there was mention of a re-subdivision to combine.
Yeah, let me take a look. I'm not sure on that, but I think that's something that the applicant could let us know.
Yeah, and then also, yeah, if it could be asked of the applicant whether the parking lot will be on its own lot or will be added to a lot as part of existing use or proposed use.
Okay, great. So next we have case number 7, file number E-020-21-22. This is a special permit for 430 Garson Avenue. Were all commissioners able to visit the site? Okay, great. All present commissioners were able to visit the site. Any initial questions? All right, seeing none, we have case number 8. File number E-021-21-22. This is a special permit for 263 Grand Ave. Were all commissioners able to visit the site? Great, okay, all present commissioners were able to visit the site. Any initial questions? All right, seeing none. Case number 9, file number E-022-21-22. This is a special permit for 12 and 16 Lamson Street. and 263 Garson Ave. Were all commissioners able to visit the site? Great. All present commissioners were able to visit the site. Any initial questions? Seeing none, we have our last case, case number 10, file number E-023-21-22, a special permit for 299 to 303 and 305 Webster Avenue. Were all commissioners able to visit the site? Great. Okay. All present commissioners were able to visit the site. Any initial questions? Okay. And Tom, I don't know if maybe you want to mention that for cases 6 through 10, that some of the waivers can be granted by the Planning Commission and others will need to be variances granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Right, I think maybe it makes most sense, maybe as we go through each one.
Okay.
During the hearing, that, and if I could have the forbearance of the board, I usually try not to ask questions on the record, but if I could be allowed just to ask the applicant during question time. Some of it depends on whether they're going to have ancillary parking on a separate lot. But then I think we can address in your deliberations then, or where you will or will not be waiving certain standards.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone have any other items?
Yeah, maybe just for
Sure.
to get some background. Normally, when we have residential development, we usually have to have a single parcel for them to build on. And that parcel includes parking as well. But again, we could ask that question of the applicant if we feel that we need to do that. So that gets at our issue if we have to do something different as regarding to separate properties or one property being used for residential and the other one being used for parking. So that gets at that issue.
Right, so yeah, if their plan is to join two or more lots together so that the parking is on the same lot as the uses it serves,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't need to do even a special permit for that. You just need to do a special permit for multi-residential in an R2.
Right. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Kate?
Nope.
Do we have anybody that has signed up to speak for any of the cases?
We do. So we have Pamela Graham is signed up to speak for case 5. And we have Rosetta McLean, who is signed up to speak for case 8.
Okay. Just remind us that at the time so I don't skip over them.
Sure
when I
thing.
ask for. All right.
I can do that.
I see that we have about 5:47.
Mhm.
So let's take a break and we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock and make sure Steve will join us then and we'll go from there. And I guess as far as I'm concerned, I think what we'll do as far as the hearing, we'll hear the cases just as we have them, 1 through 10, and we'll have Steve step out at 3, come back at 4 and 5, and then he'll step out at 6 through 10.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
So we'll see everybody in about 10 and a half minutes.
Great.
Or whatever it is, 13 minutes.
Yes.